In this video, I will show you how to upgrade Unity Dialog System to version 2.0. Before we start with the upgrade, let me tell you two very important things. First of all, make sure that you back up your project. I repeat, back up your project, because you will most likely lose some data from the dialog trees, and you will need to recreate it using the new logic in the upgraded version. Another thing that I want to mention is that you will need to follow the steps in the exact same order as I do them in this video. So make sure that you pay close attention and that you follow the steps in the same order. Now, without any further ado, let's start with the upgrade. The first step is to download the patch from the link in the description. Once you download it, you can import it into your project. This patch will remove all of the listeners in your dialog trees. If you imported the patch correctly, you should be able to see a new option under Tools, Dialog System, called Update Dialog Trees. So let's just click on it and let it run. Once it's completed, you should be able to see that in your dialog trees, all of the listeners were removed. The next step is to completely remove Dialog System asset from your project. So we will go to Indeed as folder, and we can completely remove this Dialog System folder. Once you remove it, you will get a bunch of errors, but don't worry, because the very next step is to import the version 2.0 into our project. You can import the new version from the asset store, but since I'm making this video before the version 2.0 was released on the asset store, I will simply import the asset manually. The asset was imported successfully, but if you take a look at the console, you can see that we still have some errors here. If you take a closer look, you can see that all of these errors are from Dialog UI Manager class. Now, you will probably have different kinds of errors, or maybe fewer or more of these errors. However, I will show you the general logic behind how to solve these errors, and don't worry, you will be able to solve them very easily by yourself. So let's just take a look at this class and let me show you what kind of errors do we have. The very first error that I got is the language here. So let's take a look at the variable. And as you can see, this variable language is defined as a string. However, in the version 2.0, the language is an actual enum. So what we can do is we can simply change this to the language enum. And by default, this will be language.english. Now, if you take a look, the error is gone. So we have fixed the first error. Another error that we have here is this character SL, so character scriptable object. Now in the version 2.0, this scriptable object was removed. We no longer need to create scriptable objects to create characters. So that's why we will simply get rid of this, and instead we will use a character interface. Now we get another error, which is simply this character name. Now the only difference now is that we need to use a capital C to get the character name, and now this is pretty much fixed. And we should have the same error in the onDialog node, so just simply remove SO from the character SO and change C to the capital C. The very last error that we have here is this bubble type in the dialog node and in the choice node. So now, if you recall, in the previous version, we had a predefined bubble type in the dialog and choice nodes. However, in the version 2.0, you only have a few default predefined fields, and you can create and customize fields any way you want. So what we will need to do if we want this functionality back is simply recreate this field in the Unity editor. So if we want to actually get an option to create a new field, we will need to get rid of all the errors. So I will simply comment this out. And if you have some more errors that are dependent on some fields, just comment these lines out, and then we can return back to Unity. And once we are back in Unity, we can right click and select Create Dialog System Field. Now I will call this bubble type. So I have created a new bubble type field. Now previously it was an enum. So let's create this enum field. And I think we had something like shout bubble type, taught bubble type, and speak or speech. I'm not sure now. Maybe I will take a look in the Visual Studio. Yeah, we had speech, taught, and shout. So let's recreate it. So we have speech, shout, and speech, taught, and shout fields. So now once we've created this field, we can go to Edit, Project Settings, and under Dialog Settings, we can add fields to our dialog nodes. So first of all, we want to add this field to the dialog node. And then, of course, the choice node. So let's add it here. Now, since we have made changes to dialog settings, we will need to regenerate code. So let's just close this and let's go to Tools, Dialog System, Regenerate Code. Now, once the code has been regenerated, we can return back to Visual Studio. And now, if we uncomment these lines, you should be able to see that, well, actually right now I still get an error, but that's simply because the function setBubbleImage, if you take a look, is expecting a string. However, our bubble type is now an enum. So if we look for bubble type, we get this bubble type enum. And now here we can simply change this to bubble type.speech, then bubble type.taught, and finally bubble type.shout. Now if you take a look, pretty much all of the errors are gone, so I can return back to Unity Editor. And now in the Unity Editor, if I go to some dialog, let's say the first one, you should see that I have this bubble type field here, which by default shouldn't be here, but we have created this so we can set the bubble type for each dialog and choice node. And then, as you can see, another thing that we will need to recreate is all the events and all the variables, because the way you create variables in version 2.0 is very different from the previous version. Now the way you create variables and the events is using project settings. So if we go to Edit, Project Settings, here you should be able to create all of the different types of variables. So I remember we had a number of coins variable before. So I'll create it, and I think an event called hide player. So now we have created these events. Let's close this and we can regenerate the code again because we have made changes to dialog settings. And now if you take a look, we should have an integer number of coins variable. So I'm not sure what kind of condition was here before, but let's say 1. And then here in the event node, we should call the hide player event. And similarly, in the dialog event manager, since we have only one event, the first event was selected here, so the hide player is properly set up here. And the dialog variable manager also has number of coins variable set up, or it was actually supposed to be number of hearts, whatever. But this is actually the logic behind this. I hope that you didn't encounter any difficulties. If you did, or if you have some issues with upgrading to version 2.0, feel free to ping me on Discord or send me an email, and I will do my best to help you out. So with that said, I hope that you will like these new changes in the Dialog version 2.0, and hopefully I will see you soon.